Welcome, everyone. ZASLOW Show 2.0. It is a Tuesday, the 15th of November. Good to have you aboard. You know what that means. Bad news for all the other podcasts. Got a great show planned for everybody today. What a night last night. Actually, what a last couple days when we're talking about South Florida sports. We're talking about Miami sports. Best sports town, best sports city. It's all happening right here. You got the Dolphins on Sunday doing their thing. And then last night, you got the Miami Heat. When does the fun begin? When does the fun begin? Maybe last night. Maybe the fun begins now. So the Heat get a desperately needed victory last night. And you know that one of the things that you realize right when that game ended, big embrace. Jimmy Butler, Eric Spoelstra. That's right. That was a game they needed. All right, 3 straight wins for the Heat. Now back to 500. They got back to 500 a little bit after I wanted them to. I was looking more like 5-5, 7-7. Okay, that's fine. Still 68 games left in the regular season. And now we're back to square one. So 7-7, 3 straight in the win column last night. And the Heat are back to 500 after a great win against Phoenix last night. I know there was no Chris Paul. We had no Tyler Hero, you know. That's still a very good Phoenix team. That's a very good win for Miami. So, obviously, we're going to start the show with the Heat today. Glad to have everybody with us here. Like I said, we got a lot happening. Hey, we're going to talk to my guy, the founder, the creator of Freezing Cold Takes. That's Fred Siegel. That's my pal Fred. Old Takes Exposed on Twitter. Freezing Cold Takes. Why are we talking to Fred today? Well, you got a lot of Tua slander out there. A lot on Tua that it's time for you to repent. All right? If you said bad things about Tua, it's time for you to come clean. And there are some freezing cold takes out there about maybe the MVP of the National Football League. That's my dog right there. I love him like a son. Everybody knows that. So, a lot of cold takes about Tua. We're going to get Fred on Freezing Cold Takes. He's going to fire off some of the best, most recent Freezing Cold Takes regarding Tua Tagovailoa. So, Fred will join us. Old Takes Exposed. That'll be coming up later on in the show today. Hey, good times and hard times. You know how we do on Tuesdays? NFL fan bases that are having good times after Week 10. NFL fan bases that are having hard times, Daddy, after Week 10. We'll get to that coming up on the show today. Monday Night Football last night. I want to start with the Heat. I got a lot to say about Monday Night Football last night. I want to start with the Heat. I didn't watch my stories. Yo, ZASLOW, what about Monday Night Raw? It's still real to me every Saturday on ZASLOW Show 2.0. I haven't watched Monday Night Raw yet. I'll get to it this afternoon, all right? There was too much happening last night. I had the Heat on the ZASLOW Mansion Family Room Big TV. I had Monday Night Football on ZASLOW Mansion Family Room Small TV. And then, of course, we flip over, got to watch the whole second half on the big TV. So, there's not enough televisions. Look, my attention span only goes so far. I can't have a third TV. It's too much, all right? So, Monday Night Raw, that will have to wait until this afternoon. I saw short little clips. From what I could tell, it seemed like a very good show. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. Saturdays, it's still real to me. Make sure you tune in ZASLOW Show 2.0. Wherever you're listening to ZASLOW Show 2.0, you like, you rate, you comment, you subscribe. The algorithm loves when you do all that. I don't know about the algorithm. I don't know how it works, but it loves that stuff. So like, rate, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, all right? You know what I'm talking about. So the Heat last night, down by 13 with, it was about 7-8 minutes left in the game. And they go on a 12-0 run to get right back in it, led by Bam Adebayo, who had 30 points last night. 30-10. He was 9 of 18 from the floor. Second straight game that he's had at least 18 field goal attempts. I think he had 20 last game, leading the team. He was 12 of 14 from the free throw line, including the 2 huge game-winning free throws with, what are we talking, like 12 seconds remaining in the game. That's the Bam Adebayo you're looking for. I think he had maybe 12 in the fourth quarter, 13 in the fourth quarter. Some kind of huge fourth quarter performance. Bam was sensational. A big-time game from your boy Bam Adebayo last night. Jimmy Butler, 16 points, 13 rebounds, 7 assists. He was 5 of 5 from the free throw line. Hey, I got to give it up for Caleb Martin, too. Everyone gives Caleb... I feel like Caleb Martin catches a lot of crap, because he's not P.J. Tucker. By the way, and I love P.J. Tucker. There's no P.J. Tucker slander allowed on ZASLOW Show 2.0. Everybody knows that. But P.J. Tucker, you go look at his stat line a couple nights ago. I didn't see what he... the game where... I think it was the game that Embiid at 59. I mean, P.J. just zeros all across the board, including field goal attempts. Zeros all across the board. That's not a good contract, all right? The Heat, it's like long-term gain for short-term pain. They're going to miss him right now, but you can't sign PJ to a long-term deal at this stage in his career, all right? That is not a good contract. The Heat, you don't want to hear it, they made the right move. So as a result, I feel like Caleb Martin gets a lot of crap, and Caleb was excellent last night. He's a good defender, all right? You remember he D'd up, who was it at the end of the Charlotte game? Terry Rozier. He D'd up Rozier to send it to overtime at the end of the Charlotte game. He is a good defender, Caleb Martin. 5 3-pointers last night, 15 points. So those were your big three. Those were your three main guys last night. But Bam was the star. He was a total stud in the fourth quarter. And what a finish. So listen to this finish. Super tight game. Tremendous finish. These were the last, however many, 6 possessions of the game, all right? Kyle Lowry, 3-pointer. Heater up by 2. Devin Booker follows it with a 3-pointer of his own. Suns by 1. Bam basket. It was off an offensive rebound. Heat back up 1. These are consecutive possessions. Cameron Payne, who I think stinks, by the way. Cameron Payne, floater. Suns back up 1. And then you had Bam with the free throws. That puts the Heat back up by 1, something like 12, 15 seconds remaining. Final possession of the game. These are all consecutive possessions. Incredible finish, highlighted by the Heat coming back from 13 down in the middle of the fourth quarter. Cameron Payne essentially misses a layup. I told you, he stinks. Cameron Payne misses, then Ayton gets the rebound out to Booker. Now at this point, so I'm on my couch, and I try and be calm. Like my younger son Jordan, he's 11, and he's really just now starting to get into sports. Not necessarily playing, although he plays a little bit, but he's now just starting to get into sports. So my older one, which is from the get-go, loves sports. So he was saying something to me during the Heat game the other day where, how come you don't get as excited during Heat games as you do during Dolphins games? Whoa! That's a crazy thing to say, right? And, besides Dolphins, are so goddamn exciting this year. So here's what I told him. Listen, the Heat are the most important thing to me, all right? Everybody knows the 2 most important things, Miami Heat and Pearl Jam. Yep, that's right. The Heat are the most important. And they're always going to be my favorite. They're always going to be the most important to me. They're always going to be what I care about the most. But I had to explain to him, the Heat play 82 games. I've told this story before where, so my first year, before recently when I left terrestrial radio, or I was told to leave, when I left terrestrial radio, is it a month and a half ago? Wow, a month and a half ago. When I left terrestrial radio, and of course, my gig with the Heat ended, as well. I've been doing the Heat broadcast for 12 years before this year. And in year number 1, so we're going back to 2010, 2011. In year number 1, and you remember the stakes were so damn high that year, I was sitting and talking with the great Eric Reed, who's going to join us later on in the week. I was sitting talking with the great Eric Reed, television voice of the Heat, not the former midday host at 7-9 Ticket. I don't know what he's up to. Eric Reed, television voice of the Miami Heat. I was just telling him how angry I am at the game last night, the loss last night. Couldn't sleep. It's true. And he gave me a lecture. He's like, Zaz. And he knew me at least a little bit at that point. He knows how serious I take it. But now I'm in it. And he told me, Zaz, you got to take it easy. 82 games. You're not going to make it through the season. And he was right because, look, you're listening now. You live and die by the Heat. You care just as much as I do. I'm telling you because I've been in both. I've worn both, shoes. When you're in it, it's different. And I can't get wrapped up emotionally every single game when I'm in it. And I really took that to heart. All right. Like that, it made sense to me. So I told my son, back to, what are we talking about here? So I told my son, the Heat play 82 games. I can't get crazy about every single game. But the Dolphins, they only play 17 games. And every single game is super important. So yeah, this year in particular is what he's talking about with the Dolphins, where I'll get really pumped up during games. Now look, I was really pumped at the end of the Heat game last night. So Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton gets the rebound from Cameron Payne. He stinks. DeAndre Ayton gets the rebound from Cameron Payne. And I'm watching with my older son. He's already watching. He's already standing on his feet in front of the TV. And now at this point, I hit the recline. I'm watching the game. I'm reclined, on this. That's how relaxed I am. Cameron Payne misses. And now it's, I got to stand up. So I'm hitting the recline on the ZASLOW Mansion family room couch. And, the recline's like in slow motion as this play is happening. And so the whole thing's going on in slow motion. Finally, the recline, it shuts, and now I stand up, like right before Devin Booker gets the shot up. It was such a pathetically slow scene in the ZASLOW Mansion family room. So the recline finally goes, and now I get up, and Booker has the shot blocked, which, by the way, was very reminiscent of the Chris Bosh, Danny Green block, right? Where, you're not allowed to make any contact. And I am interested in what the league's 2-minute report says today about the Jimmy Butler play there. But Butler blocks Booker, and it reminds me of the Bosh Game 6 block on Danny Green, where there was certainly body contact, but it was all ball. And if you get the ball, it's kind of like the Butler block on Steph Curry last week, where he got his hand after he got the ball, Kind of like in the NFL, like if you punt it, you can rough the kicker if you got a finger on that ball. Yeah, run that fool over. Come on. So I'm interested in what the league's 2-minute report says today about it. I think it's going to end up being a good no call because it was all ball. There was body contact, but it was all ball. And you're allowed to do that even if it's a jumper. Reminds me of the Chris Bosh block on Danny Green, end of Game 6, one of the best nights of your life. Everybody knows that. And then Booker recovers, and then he misses, which, by the way, from our vantage point watching on television, I thought it was going in. And like it flashed in front of my eyes, the Josh Hart. Was it Josh Hart who hit that shot? I think it was Josh Hart against the Blazers. It flashed in front of my eyes, the Josh Hart shot. Because you knew that was going in. And this one to me looked good too, but it was actually well short. And Spo embraces Jimmy Butler. You want to know how big that game was for the team. And I'm hoping, does the fun start now? So I'm hoping that this is the game that kickstarts everything. Because this is how you know how important these games are for this team. This is the Heat culture, right? After a regular season game in November, which gets the Heat to 7-7, two things that you notice. Number one, Jimmy Butler, Spo, embrace right after the Butler was so fired up. I love him. Butler was so fired up. He and Spo embrace. Also, you go look at the box score after the game. Go see how many guys played for the Heat last night. How many guys played? A regular season game in the middle of November. 8 guys played. You don't think that was a game that Spo needed to win? You don't think that was a game that Spo knew the team needed to win? 8 guys. 8-man rotation in mid-November. It's a game they needed. They needed that game. And that's what this team is about. That's the culture. It could be mid-November. We're going balls to the wall tonight. I'll win this game. So 7-7 now. The Heat back to 500 before heading out on the road, and here's what you got coming up on the road. So they're at Toronto tomorrow night. It's Toronto, Washington. Toronto's struggling a little bit right now, but that's a tough team. They're very similar to the Heat. Style of play, they always give us trouble. Remember, we were 1-1 against them the 2 home games a few weeks ago. We're at Toronto, at Washington, at Cleveland, who is awesome, and at Minnesota, who are really struggling to find their footing after trading for what I think is the most overrated big man in the history of the league, Rudy Gobert. So 4 games. This is a tough road trip. If you come back 2-2, I think you feel pretty good. But they needed that game. Has the fun begun? Did the fun start last night? Maybe it did. But Spo plays 8 guys last night. They are always going to be the anti-tank team. Now there's a reason they should be tanking, but they're never going to do that crap. They're never going to do that. Mid-November, they were that pumped about winning that game. Spo plays 8 guys. Win at all costs, man. That's what it's about for this team. Every single night. This is the win that gets us going. I do think we have to point out Spo's next responsibility, and hopefully it starts, we'll find out if he travels with the team, although my guess is he won't. Based on Spo's comments about Tyler Hero, this is a rough ankle injury. Just ankle sprains are always on their own timeline. I mean, he's on the bench with the team. He's standing and whatnot. I don't know, maybe he makes a trip. But Spo's next responsibility is reintegrating Tyler Hero. What do I mean by that? How could it be hard to reintegrate Tyler Hero? Zaz, come on, leading scorer, takes the most shots. Well, that's exactly it. This team is at their best. We said this after the last couple Charlotte games. This team is at their best when everyone is involved, when they're the sum of their parts, when you get double-figure scoring off the bench from each. Dedmon. By the way, what a sequence from Dwayne Dedmon late in the third quarter. We're down by, what was it? We're down by 9, I believe. Back-to-back threes to get right back in the game. Maybe down by 12. Back-to-back threes to get right back in the game. What a sequence. But when you get... Listen, things have been said about Dwayne Dedmon. Great job by him last night. But Dedmon double figures off the bench. Vincent double figures off the bench. Robinson double figures off the bench. Caleb Martin with a very strong game. You don't know who's going to be the guy. That's when they're at their best. And Tyler, when he played, look, just because the Heat gave Tyler Hero this big contract, which doesn't kick in until next year, but just because the Heat gave Tyler Hero this big contract doesn't mean that things necessarily need to change as far as the style of play. Now, they're not going to send him back to the bench. You can't do that to this point. You can't do it. Because it so clearly looks like a demotion if you do that. You can't do that. But they need to find a way to make it that the ball is not sticking in Tyler's hands, which it has been. And that he's not shooting every time he has the ball. So reintegrating Tyler with this group, that's the next responsibility for Coach Spo. Because this is the style they need to play, where we're moving the basketball. So we'll find out if he makes the trip this afternoon, if he's flying with the team. But what a finish. Best game of the year, right? Best Heat game of the year, 113-112. They beat the Suns. Tremendous finish there. Bam in the fourth. Jimmy with the late defense. Caleb Martin, big three-pointers throughout the game, too. So the Suns are definitely pissed. Why are the Suns pissed? The free throw disparity. The Heat outshot them 25-4 at the free throw line. Come on. Here's Phoenix Suns head coach, good guy Monty Williams, after the game.
It's just one of those things where when you look at the stat sheet, you look at situations like that, and we only end up with 4 free throws for the game. You know what I mean? That is hard to swallow. I think it's the second lowest free throw total we've ever had in franchise history. In a physical game like that where everybody's bumping, we only get 4 free throws. It's becoming really hard to swallow. And you feel like you can't even talk about it because you're going to get fined. But that's an unreal amount of free throws in any NBA game. You know what I'm saying? And so, down the stretch, we could have done some things. We let them get a bunch of offensive rebounds, but we got a bunch of offensive rebounds. We only had 1 free throw in the first half, I think, and that was an illegal defense. So that's a tough pill to swallow.
Oh, wham! Monty Williams, wham! I didn't get enough free throws. All right, so you know how I feel about this, right? I've said this 1,000 times. First of all, let me say first thing I'm going to say is, I was not watching that game last night thinking the Heat are getting away with calls. And this works conversely, where, you guys, you'll tweet me at ZASLOW Show. You can hit me up on Instagram. I'm an influencer, but I still got time for everybody. I love you long time. ZASLOW J on Instagram. And I'll get messages where, the Heat, they're not getting any calls, free throws, whatever. I'm like, I don't know. I wasn't watching that game thinking, damn, I can't believe they didn't get that call. And I felt that way last night. Like, I wasn't watching the game thinking, wow, the Heat are getting away with lots. Wow, Suns, they're not getting calls. I mean, maybe one or two times. But I didn't think it was a growing theme. You know how I feel about this, okay? Where, show me, and 25-4 is tough to swallow. I get it, all right? It's hard to believe that the Heat only allowed 4 free throws. And you heard Monty Williams there, where one of them in the first half, the one was a technical free throw. Defense in 3 seconds. It's hard to believe the Heat, as the great Mike Inglis would say, we're playing angelic defense. It's hard to believe that. But you know where I stand on this. Show me in the rule book. I missed the memo. Show me in the rule book where it says each game in the NBA, both teams need to have similar amount of free throws and need to be called for similar amount of fouls. Show me where it says that. Show me where it says that. I've never seen it. I hate that complaint. I've never seen where each team has to get the same amount of free throws and each team has to get called for the same amount of fouls, as if it is impossible that each team is playing a different style. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that's what happened last night, but as if it is impossible that each team is playing a different style, that one's being more aggressive than the other. That's not possible. So, you know where I stand on that, all right? That stuff is garbage to me. Is 25-4 tough to swallow? Yes. But, like last night, I get messages on Twitter. People tweet at me. And, I'll get the message last night where, here, let me read it to you. Hang on a second. I can't find it. But, I'll get, here we go. Got this message from Marcus. Gotta be a Suns fan. This says more about your lack of basketball knowledge. Bunch of flopping crybabies. Had 3 fouls called and still complaining. And my response is, after a game like that, anyone who wants to complain about the fouls, and that's why the Heat won, if I were to see you, I would laugh in your face. Like, who cares? Don't care. You want to complain about fouls today? That's why the Heat won. All right. I will laugh in your face. And then, of course, you got the great Eddie Johnson, who I love, by the way. Eddie Johnson in the afternoons, my pal Justin Termini, and former NBA player Eddie Johnson on SiriusXM NBA Radio. I'm a big fan of that channel. And Eddie Johnson is all-time great Phoenix Sun, and he is also the color analyst on television for the Suns. And Eddie gets after it on Twitter, man. He does. And especially in regards to the Heat. Remember it was last year where Butler got into the argument with Spo and is that Heat culture? Although I don't even think it was that play. I think, you know what it was? Excuse me. It was Jimmy Butler getting a technical foul after he got a 3-point play. Is that Heat culture? Technical foul after you score a basket? Anyway. So Eddie Johnson tweeted out last night right after the game. And look, make no mistake, I love Eddie Johnson. And Eddie Johnson tweets, the best game I have ever seen played where a team gets 4 free throw attempts in a 48-minute game and the other gets 25 and the Suns lose by 1. That's funny. And then he screen grab and posts the shot chart. Because, people are like, the Suns, they weren't taking as many shots to the paint. Whatever. I don't even know if that's true. So Eddie Johnson then posted the shot chart for both teams. You can see the shot chart, full court. The shot chart says differently for the water boys and couch potatoes who say the Suns did not drive the ball. They had 4 more attempts in the paint and 8 more mid-range attempts. Shot chart does not lie. 25-4 is a joke and lost by 1. Okay, hang on a second. And this is an important distinction, all right? And this is where Eddie's wrong. And like I said, I love Eddie Johnson, but he's wrong. They had 4 more attempts in the paint and 8 more mid-range shots. Shot chart does not lie. Yes, it does, Eddie. Yes, it does. Because what happens when you're fouled? Does that count as a shot? No. When you're fouled, that's not a shot attempt. It's not a field goal attempt. So the Suns have 4 more attempts in the paint and 8 more mid-range attempts when you're not counting all of those free throws that the Heat took because of what would have been a shot attempt. Shot chart does lie, actually. It does. And I'm not trying to be a smartass. The shot chart does lie. When you're fouled, it does not count as a field goal attempt. So the Suns didn't shoot more in the paint than the Heat. The Suns didn't shoot more mid-range shots to the Heat than the Heat. The Heat were getting fouled. And that's why you see the discrepancy at the free throw line. Those are essentially the shots, the field goals that the Heat took. So the shot chart does actually lie. Anyway, I love A. Johnson. So you had a bit of crying, bit of crying, a bit of complaining as far as the game last night goes.